Good day, I'm Sir Renan, your oral communication in context teacher. Last time we talked about the first model of communication, the Aristotle's model of communication. And for this lesson, we will be focusing on another kind or another model of communication. And this is called Shannon-Weaver's model of communication. This model was first proposed in 1948. But before we talk about how this model works and how this differs from all the other models of communication, let's meet first its proponents. First one is Claude Elwood Shannon. In 1948, he wrote an article entitled A Mathematical Theory of Communication in Bell System Technical Journal with Warren Weaver. He was an American mathematician and an electronic engineer. Another proponent was Warren Weaver. He was an American scientist, mathematician, and science administrator. The Shannon-Weaver model of communication was first used in 1949. It is also known as the transmission model, for this uses transmitters to transmit data or information, and this has also been called the mother of all communication models. This model is specially designed to develop the effective communication between sender and receiver. Also, they find the factor affecting the communication process called the noise. We can actually observe that in every communication situation, noise always affects the communication process. This factor has always been present. In our previous discussion, we talked about the different kinds or types of noise. It may not just be referring to the physical noise or the sounds that we hear around us, but it may also be referring to the psychological, physiological, and so on. At first, the model was developed to improve technical communication. This was actually developed for types of communication that involve the use of technology. Later, it was widely applied in the field of communication, not only for technical communication, to be specific. And the article, which was called Mathematical Theory, later came to be known as Shannon-Weaver model of communication, or mother of all models of communication. Just like other models, Shannon-Weaver model of communication also has its basic elements. And these are, the first one is the source. Source is where the message originates. It is responsible for producing a message. It is the what or the who in the communication process. Who gives the message or what gives the message? That is referred to as the source. Another element is the transmitter. Transmitter converts the message into signals to be transmitted or sent through cables or other machines. If you could remember doon sa basic explanation ng process of communication, it was very simple. From the stimulus or the source, the speaker, tapos i-decode niya through converting the message into words, tapos the channel, tapos it will be, encode niya, tapos after the channel, it will be decoded through interpretation, tapos doon na sa receiver. This particular model, since this was supposedly developed to improve the technical communication, it involves another important element here, which is the transmitter. This model has become very technical since this already involves the use of cables or machines in order to send or to transmit data or information or even messages. Because messages in communication are sent in a form of sound waves or signals. And that is the job of the transmitter. Just like when we call someone using the phone, when we talk over the radio, or any other technologically related forms of doing communication. Basta whenever we transmit or send data or messages through telephone lines, we don't know actually what happens there. Basta the lines themselves convert our message into signals para ma-transmit doon o maparating natin doon sa receiver. And the receivers naman will be able to hear or understand the messages that have been converted. Another element in this model is the channel. This is the medium used to send a message. Once the message has already been converted, it will pass through a channel. Since a message has been initiated or converted na into a signal and sent through this medium or a particular medium, it will now reach its destination. Doon na yun po, papunta na yung message mo sa receiver. But before that, the converted message should be decoded first. And that is the job of the receiver. So in the case of technical communication, the telephone line is one concrete example. Another element is the receiver. The receiver translates the message in the form of a signal or sound wave into a form that can be understood by the destination or recipient of the message. So in this case, the receiver is the counterpart of transmitter. Bago mapunta doon sa fifth element or the destination, after the message has been converted, ita-translate naman ni receiver yung message para sigurado maiintindihan niya kung ano yung data na pinadala sa kanya. Again, this is primarily involved in the technical communication. Kasi ikukumpara mo dun sa simpleng proseso ng communication from the speaker, tapos i-encode niya ang message, tapos kung ano yung channel, pwedeng face-to-face kayo, magkaharap lang kayo nag-uusap, tapos i-decode, tapos tanggap na ng receiver. But in the case of technical communication, this particular model introduces two other new elements, transmitter and the receiver, that are involving the conversion of message into signals and the translation of messages, also in the form of a signal or sound waves. Katulad ng pakikinig mo sa radyo, hindi naman kayo face-to-face, yung speaker, siya yung source, with yung mga radio lines na yan, mga radio waves na tinatawag, gumagana yung mga transmitters dyan, hanggang sa ma-receive naman ng mga tagapakinig. And there they are, the destination. The one that receives the decoded message from the source. This is the receiving end of this communication model. Take note, these elements are primarily found in the technical communication. And to help you better understand what Shannon-Weaver is all about, I have here the model. As you see, we have here the 5 basic elements: the sender or the information source, the transmitter or the encoder, the channel, the reception or the reception or the decoder, and the destination or the receiver. So what makes it different from the Aristotle's model of communication? Di ba ang Aristotle's model, ano yun? One-way communication, one-way activity from sender to receiver. Ang receivers don't have the chance to give feedback. They remain passive. Tagapakinig lang sila, taga-accept lang sila ng impormasyon coming from the speaker. Just like whenever you listen to State of the Nation address or valedictory address or campaigns. Itong Shannon-Weaver model naman, this now involves feedback. Kaya nagkakaroon na ng flow ng communication process. Iikot na siya. The Shannon-Weaver model mathematical theory of communication follows the concept of communication also in a linear fashion from the sender to the receiver with the following steps. We have here the sender or the information source. This model starts with the sender or information source. They are the persons or objects or things or any information source who have the information to begin with. The information source starts the process by choosing a message to send. What is going to be sent? What data is going to be sent or to be transmitted? Ang data ay yung mga information or mga impormasyon na nais mong ipadala doon sa destination or receiver. If you are the sender or the source of information, you can send a message in multiple different ways. It may be orally, through spoken word, in writing, through body language, with the use of music, and many other ways. Then here comes the encoder or the transmitter. This is the next step in the Shannon-Weaver model. The encoder is the machine or a person that converts the idea into signals that can be sent from the sender to the receiver or the destination. This model was designed originally to explain communication through means such as telephone and computers which encode our words using codes like yung mga tinatawag na binary digits or radio waves. Kasi nga this was primarily designed for technical communication. Pero syempre, the encoder can also be a person. If the encoder is a person, he turns an idea into spoken words or written words or a sign language to communicate an idea to someone. The encoder might be a telephone. Siya yung magko-convert ng boses natin to be sent down the telephone lines. Yun yung tinatawag na channel. Another encoder, pwede naman yung radio station, which converts our voice naman into waves, more sound waves, para mapadala doon sa mapadala sa mga tagapakinig yung mensahe. Or the encoder is the person himself. Diba? We encode our message by putting them into words para maintindihan, ma-decode ng receiver, ma-interpret niya kung anong sinasabi natin through our actions. and also through our words. The next step in the Shannon-Weaver model is the channel. Ito yung nagsisilbing infrastructure that gets information from the sender and transmitter through to the decoder and receiver. And we sometimes also call this as the medium. Ano ang ginamit na pang-transmit ng information from the sender to the destination or to the receiver? It may be the use of the telephone, radio, and many others. Pwede din namang a person sending an email, an electronic mail, using the World Wide Web or the internet as the medium. A person talking on a landline phone is using the cables and electrical wires as also their channel. And if we are face to face, perhaps we don't have the channel except the sound waves from our voice that carry the sound from the sender's mouth to the receiver's ear. So, yung channel dun mismo, yung face-to-face natin. The next step in the Shannon-Weaver model is the inclusion of noise. We know that noise interrupts a message while it's on the way from the sender to the receiver. It is named after the idea that noise could interrupt our understanding of a message. Diba, in our previous discussion, we talked about the different types of noise. May physical noise, may psychological noise, may physiological noise, may semantic noise. These different types of noises were categorized. And to simplify those types, we can just divide the noise into two. Pwedeng internal or pwedeng external. Yung internal noise may happen when a sender makes a mistake in encoding a message, or the receiver naman makes a mistake in decoding or interpreting the message naman. Tulad ng yung mistake sa pag-encode naman, yung na-misspell mo yung word in typing a text message, for example. Yung mistake naman dun sa decoding naman, when someone misinterprets a sentence when reading an email, for example, or a text message, misinterpretation. Those could be counted as internal noise. External noise naman happens when something external, not in the control of sender or receiver, impedes the message. For example, at the point of transmission through the channel, for example, we were having a conversation by a busy highway and the receiver is having trouble hearing over the sound of cars. Hindi kayo magkaintindihan, masyadong maingay. So, that could have been classified as an external noise. So one of the key goals for people who use this theory is to identify the causes of noise and try to, of course, minimize them to improve the quality of the message. Other samples pa ng mga external noise, yung sa radio, yung mahina yung sagap, yung maybe you lost the letter in the post office, example. So, wala na yung masyadong hindi na masyadong gamit ngayon ang post office. Interruption sa television broadcast, or ngayon sa kung you are fond of having your online classes, maybe yung failed internet connection, that those could also be classified as external noise. Sa internal noise naman, Pwede yung you're having headache, so you can concentrate. Maybe someone is speaking with a heavy accent, or when the sender or the speaker mumbles when speaking, yung maintindihan yung mga pinagsasabi niya na, or mismo yung language mo hindi naiintindihan ng mga listeners mo. Dun sa, di ba sa types of noise natin, yung semantic noise. Kaya, you better use simple words kasi yung goal mo when you speak is to be understood. The next step in the Shannon-Weaver model is decoder. Decoding is the exact opposite of encoding. Shannon and Weaver made this model in reference to communication that happens through devices like telephones. So in this model, there usually needs to be a device that decodes a message from yung mga tinatawag na mga binary digits or waves, radio waves or sound waves, back into a format that can be understood by the receiver. Pero kung face-to-face lang naman ang communication situation, wala na yung mga conversion of messages, tapos yung translation of messages. When you encode, you put your messages into words, tapos when you decode, you interpret what the other person is telling you. That's how simple the process. Again, the next step in the Shannon-Weaver model is the receiver or the destination. Take note, the receiver is the endpoint of the original Shannon and Weaver model of technical communication process. Yung original Shannon-Weaver model of technical communication process, dyan na sana nagtatapos yung process nila, yung communication process. This is the step where the person finally gets the message. But since this model has been widely applied in the field of communication, hindi na siya naging one way, just like the Aristotle model of communication. The process does not end in the receiver or the destination because there is an added final step. Examples of a receiver might be the person on the other end of a telephone, yung kausap mo sa telephone, the person reading an email you sent them, an automated payment system online that has received credit card details for payment, yung mga bills payment, or even when you answer online surveys, diba? May automatic na sumasagot to tell you that your responses have already been recorded. And we're down to the final step in the Shannon-Weaver model, that is feedback. Actually, the feedback step was not originally proposed by Shannon and Weaver in 1948. So, in response to the criticisms of the linear nature of approach of this model, they've added another step, which is the inclusion of feedback. So with the addition of this final step, which is feedback, the process will now become continuous. This becomes interactive rather than just a one-way activity. So there you have it, the Shannon-Weaver model of communication. Thank you for listening. Bye.